Question for Rick Galloway. What is that in the picture?
City
I can't hear you. Can you turn up?
Okay, we are now we're now broadcasting, and I have recorded Lou Hill and Carmela Conroy as joining us. So welcome. We have 12 participants, 12 voting members of the body, and it being 7:31 p.m., I am calling the meeting of the 3rd Legislative District Democrats to order. I'd like to ask Dan Lambert to open the meeting with opening words, which will be the Pledge of Allegiance for this meeting. So, Dan, feel free to take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan. The agenda was circulated with the call. Are there any additions or suggestions to or deletions to the agenda that was circulated? None appearing. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as distributed.
So
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as distributed. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. The agenda has been adopted. Donovan Arnold, welcome to the meeting. I have recorded you as president, and we currently have 13 voting members in the room. I did circulate via email to the precinct committee officers financial information for both calendar 2023 as well as the first month of 2024. Big picture is we were more or less in break-even mode for calendar 2023. I know the QuickBook report shows a net income of $1,969.04, but $2,000 of the other exempt contributions of 2010 were contributions from the Washington Education Association Political Action Committee, and they asked us to take those funds and redistribute them to local party organizations in Eastern or Central Washington that needed funds. So I would like us to not look as though we made a $1,969 profit, but in actuality, we had a $31 deficit because we've mentally earmarked that $2,000 to go to other local party organizations that have greater need for those funds than ourselves. So as of the end of December, we had, in effect, $1,859.89 in our exempt account. We had the $2,000 that we're holding for other LPOs, and we had $483.44 in the non-exempt funds, which can be used to give to candidates. Is everybody familiar with the difference between exempt and non-exempt? Is there anybody that doesn't understand exempt or non-exempt? Because I'm happy to go through it in relatively painless detail. Karen?
So did they ask the 3rd LD to do this because those other LDs were not in robust enough status to be dealing with their PDC filings and other things? So we're kind of caretaking their money as a pass-through so that things can happen that they need to have happen. I don't understand why we did that.
We did it in part because some county party organizations were not even set up at the time that they were making distributions.
Okay.
So they needed to make distributions. They in effect made the distributions, or we got the funds in very early of 2023. They made the decision to give us the funds near the end of 2022, but some of those organizations were not. So, for example, Lincoln County was in startup mode. Asotin County became effective as an organization sometime midway through 2023. And so, and the maximum that can be given to any single organization that chooses not to file detailed reports with the Public Disclosure Commission is $500. So it gives us the opportunity as a relatively well-off legislative district organization to look for some of our lesser well-off brothers and sister organizations that might not have been in a position at the time this PAC had funds available and get it to them. So, that's the reason we accepted the money, and we've waited for a little bit for the organizations to get on their feet, and I would expect that probably by the end of March, we'll have that $2,000 going out to 4 or more legislative district or county party organizations, and we'll be back down to the normal amount of roughly $1,800 was our true exempt account balance.
Okay.
An exempt account can only be used for party building. And so, for example, if we give $500 to Lincoln County, they can't give it to candidates, but they can use it to recruit PCOs. They can have a social. They can do a number of other things. Great question, Karen. Any other questions from anybody? And I don't have everybody on the screen, so on my screen. So if you do have a question, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, let's shift over to the January 2024 report. Not much activity, although we did receive in the non-exempt account, which can be used for candidates, $500 in surplus funds from Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck's surplus funds account. So that's what the other non-exempt amount of $500 is. And so we currently have a small surplus as of the end of January to combat the small deficit that we had at the end of 2023. And so we're in reasonably good shape for the long term. I would like to encourage precinct committee officers, if you've got the wherewithal, to contribute to the non-exempt account. The non-exempt account can be used for candidates. We're doing fine with our party building account, which covers most of our bills from a day-to-day perspective or month-to-month perspective. But if we do want to build up some funds to be able to give to candidates that will be on the ballot in 2024, as long as they touch our district. And so that could include, for example, Legislative District 3. You know, we've got both the senator position as well as the 2 state rep positions on the ballot this year. And we also have Commissioner District 1, which is a county commissioner. So we have precincts from that district in the 3rd LD. Amber is not up for ballot this year. And then the other district that I think we touch is Commissioner District 5. And we do not yet have an announced candidate. I know of someone who is thinking about it, but to the best of my knowledge, they have not yet announced. And so we've got potentially 2 county commissioner districts to support, as well as the governor and lieutenant. All the statewide touch our district, obviously, as well. So if you do have the financial wherewithal and you have if you have more money than, so I'd like you to take care of the county party first at SpokaneDemocrats.org, because they obviously do outstanding work. But if you go out a little bit, $3, $5 a month or something like that, that would be great to go to thirdld.org and click on the contribute page and then contribute to the Progressive Candidates account. Any questions on either of the 2 financial reports? I think we're in good shape for the 3rd LD. Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the financial reports as
So
distributed.
moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. Any abstentions? The motion has passed. Next item on the agenda is the report from the chair. I guess that would be me. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you did get the email from me issued roughly just past 7 o'clock that has the link to the state party's website, that's got a lot of great information on the delegate selection process. And so the delegate selection plan for the 3rd legislative district is we will be sending either in person or virtually, because the state convention permits virtual delegates. We will be electing 25 delegates. We have 10 alternates, and we also have 10 automatic delegates. And I'd like to walk through who the automatic delegates are, because if you are on the call and hear your name, you should not be running for delegate because you are an automatic delegate. So the chair, vice chair, and 2 state committee members are automatic delegates from the 3rd LD. So Lou, that would be you. Yvette, you're a state committee member, so you're an automatic delegate as well. Mark Carlos is our 4th automatic delegate in addition to me. We also get to claim as automatic delegates any county party officers that reside in the 3rd legislative district. So Nada, you're an automatic delegate. Steve Kirby is an automatic delegate, and Blair Anundson lives in the 3rd, so he's an automatic delegate. So that takes us up to 7 automatic delegates of the 10. And then we're allowed to claim any state legislators who are Democrats from our legislative district. So Andy Billig is an automatic delegate, Tim Ormsby is an automatic delegate, and Marcus Riccelli are automatic delegates. So none of those individuals, none of those 10 should be wanting to run for state convention delegate, because you're already in. You don't need to go through the process. There's a base of 20 delegates that each legislative district gets to elect, plus 10 alternates. And because our legislative district was blue in the 2020 presidential / gubernatorial election, we get 5 additional delegates for being blue. And as a result, we have 25 delegates plus 10 alternates. And those are the folks that we will be electing on April 6th, where people can self-nominate at the website that I indicated, distributed. There is an opportunity there to watch a little under 2-minute video from Shasti, which I encourage each and every one of us to do. But you can pre-register to run for state or national delegate. And they also have delegate training, so you know what you might be getting yourself involved with. And so there's 2 buttons right below the video. The left-hand side button is pre-register to run for state or national delegate. The state delegate, the state convention, as I mentioned, is going to be in Bellevue. Well, I didn't mention it before, but it's going to be in Bellevue. The only person who absolutely positively has to be in Bellevue is me. Everybody else, if you get elected as a state convention delegate, can participate virtually and have your views recorded as though you were physically present in Bellevue. You're more than welcome to attend, but if you don't want to incur the travel time, if you don't want to incur the hotel cost to be in Bellevue for the state convention, you have the opportunity to be a state delegate and be voting virtually. And I will cast our delegation's votes as a block, as I am instructed to do so by the delegation. Now, if we achieve our affirmative action goals, we get bonus delegates over and above the 35 delegates and 10 alternates. And those bonus delegates are our Latino Hispanic goal is 3 delegates. Our Black goal is 3 delegates. Our Native American goal is 2 delegates. The AAPI community, Asian American Pacific Islander community, our goal is 3 delegates. People with disabilities, our goal is 10 delegates. LGBTQ plus, 3 delegates. And youth is defined as, I believe, under 36. Our goal there is 14 delegates. So if we achieve all of those goals, we can receive up to 10 additional delegates, which basically would convert our alternates into full-fledged delegates, full-fledged voting delegates, because that's how the bonus delegates get selected. And so, Nada, do you want to talk? I'm going to spring this on you, but I'm going to ask if you want to talk about the outreach that the county party is doing with allied organizations to help the legislative districts achieve their diversity and affirmative action goals.
Absolutely. So at the county party, we have reached out to neighboring organization NAACP, Hispanic Business Association. We're making reaches to local tribe contacts and college LGBTQ groups. And we've also sent out a thing to the ANPI. Shoot, I can't remember the name of the organization that actually does the booths that we do for the events that they put on here in April, to inform them about our delegate process. That way they can recruit members within their organizations to apply to be delegates, and that will spread out amongst all the LDs. It's a good way to build relationships with those organizations is how we're seeing it, and also assist the legislative districts in meeting their affirmative action goals. If we meet those affirmative action goals, then our whole county and all the LDs that are incorporated in it will get more delegates and more voice at the Washington State Convention. And so not only do we want to hear from the people that actually represent what our communities look like and have that process within the Democratic Party, but we also want to have more of a voice on the eastern side. It's a common thing I hear. And so this is an easy and actionable way to make that happen. So if you have any contacts with any other minority groups or groups that David has said are part of our affirmative action goals, please email me at chair@Spokane Democrats, and we will get right on that.
Thank you.
Hey,
thank you, Nada. Yes.
See, I'm wondering, are there any native PCOs other than Yvette now?
So you don't need to be a precinct committee officer to be a delegate. So for example, Yvette as a Native American is an automatic delegate. So our goal of 2, Yvette fills 50% of our Native American goal. Rick, if you were to run and get elected as a delegate, you would make it 2. Obviously, we'd like to exceed past all of the numerical goals that I went through. And those are based on the 25 allocated delegates, the 10 alternates, the 10 automatic, and the 10 automatic delegates. So our goals are based on the percentages that we have been assigned as minimum targets, and then we round up to the number of people. And so it would please me to no end if we so our goal for Native Americans is 3.8% of the delegation. That's how we came up with 2, 3.8% times 45. If we ended up being at 10%, we don't get any bonus points for that, but it would be wonderful to obviously be truly representative of our community. Does that answer your question, Rick?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Kristen and then to Nada.
I just have a quick question. Do we get to meet our quota by including the alternate delegates or meet the goals?
Yes, the self-identified demographics of our alternate delegates count towards the percentage, count towards our affirmative action goals.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. Nada.
If for automatic delegates, like, you know, because I'm an automatic delegate, if I meet any of these criteria, should I fill out the form or should I?
There'll be a survey to the automatic delegates where we'll be asked to identify our attributes, so to speak. And so that's how that'll get taken into account.
Okay.
Any other questions on at least the number of delegates? So the number of delegates, stated number of delegates is 25 plus 10 alternates, that's 35. And then we get 10 automatics. So that gets us up to 45. And that's what the 45 number is, what our targets are for diversity. And then if we meet or exceed all of our diversity goals, basically everybody who's listed as an alternate gets to become a delegate because they'll move from alternate status to full-fledged delegate status. And so as we're looking for people to run for delegate, then obviously we need to have at least 35 candidates to run for delegate, not counting the 10 automatics. And if we have more than 35, then the precinct committee officers who are the voting members on April 6th will review the bios and submissions from those candidates and then cast their ballots for, in effect, the top 35. And that's how our delegates will be elected. So the election process itself is very similar to what we did in 2022 and 2020. This time the state party is running the election. It is a virtual election on April 6th. You'll need to log in based on credentials that will be sent to you by the state after I certify who our precinct committee officers are as of the end of March. And you'll have, I think it's a 10+ hour window to actually cast your vote. So we will be having a virtual meeting that will really not be a meeting, because what you'll be doing is going to the website address that's given to you with the credentials that are given to you, and you will be voting for the delegates that you would like to see represent the 3rd legislative district. If we have a boatload and boatload and boatload of delegates, then one of the things that we'll ask you to probably take into consideration are the diversity goals, and to make sure that we try to reach or exceed our diversity goals. And obviously, if we don't have enough to fill all the delegate slots, then everybody who's interested in running will just be, in effect, automatically elected as delegates. So the link that's on the link to pre-register to run for state or national delegate, in order to run for state delegate, the hard cutoff for friends, family, other people who might be interested in running is March 31st at 5 p.m. That is a hard cutoff. And so we'll be doing our darndest for the next 31 days as Democrats in the 3rd legislative district, Democrats in the county, and Democrats in Eastern Washington to drive as much traffic as we can to the website that I shared with you. And you can share that website freely because it's got links where people can sign up to receive delegate training. And that delegate training could be state delegate training, it could be national delegate training. People can pre-register to run for state or national delegate. And the thing that I think is really cool, in the bottom on the left-hand side, there's a link to a website page, a hyperlink to Summary of Washington's Delegate Selection Plan. And that, when it comes up, talks about the big picture, how we elect our delegates by congressional district, how we elect our delegates statewide, who were automatic delegates to the national convention, et cetera, et cetera. There's a wealth of information there that if somebody's interested in running for national delegate, that's something that they're going to want to look at. So the website link that I sent out is really, really, really good. So I just encourage you to take a look at it and share it widely amongst folks. Does anybody have any questions about the big picture process? So we're going to be soliciting candidates. We're going to be soliciting candidates through March 31st at 5 o'clock. And then you should reserve some time on your schedule for April 6th, because that's when the state party is going to be asking you as the voters in the election of state convention delegates in the 3rd legislative district. That's when the state party is going to be asking you to go to a special website with the credential that they will issue and to vote during some or a portion of that day. It should not take a huge amount of time. It may take a little bit of time if we end up with 200 people running for delegate and we've got to narrow it down to 35. That could take some time to read up on everybody. But historically, we have not had so many people wanting to run for delegate that we've had 200 people. It would be great if we had 70 people to give people choices. But I will be thrilled if we can send a full delegation to Bellevue for the state convention. So if anybody has questions, happy to open it up and answer your questions at this particular point in time.
Do we have to stay at the hotel when we're there as a delegate?
No.
Okay.
Nope. If you choose to go, there may be a preferred rate that is negotiated at a particular hotel. But if you've got friends, family, if you want to do an Airbnb instead or something like that, then you can do whatever you want. I believe we're going to be at a particular convention center that is not attached to a hotel. So and I don't know the name of the building, but it's I've been told it's the convention center in Bellevue, but it's got a fancy name associated with it, and that I do not have. But no, you're not required to stay. There is no host hotel that you're required to stay at. And keep in mind that if you are a delegate, if you're elected a delegate, you can fully participate in the convention virtually. So you are not even required to go to Bellevue if you choose not to do so. So that should help us achieve our goals, because youth, for example, might not be able to afford to drive to Bellevue and stay at a hotel. They may choose, if they decide they want to go, they're not required to stay at the host hotel, but they can participate virtually 100% and get all the benefits of voting as though they were there in person. Kristen, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you for that reminder. Quick question. So people can run for state and national, and they're treated separately? Is that my understanding? And
so the people who are the state delegates in the 5th congressional district will be choosing in May the national delegates that go to the convention. So the PCOs pick the state delegates. The state delegates vote for the national delegates. And so if you go to the link in what is on my screen is the lower left, says summary of Washington's delegate selection plan underneath the words Electoral College. If you open that up, you'll see in CD5, we will be electing 5 delegates from Congressional District 5. And right now, the maximum number of male identifying delegates will be 3. The maximum number of female identifying delegates will be 2. And if we have any non-binary delegates, those don't count against the limits. We could have 5 non-binary delegates. That's perfectly fine. But of our 5 delegates, we can have a maximum of 3 male identifying, a maximum of 2 female identifying. And based on the results of the March 12th presidential preference primary in Congressional District 5, that determines who those 5 delegates are pledged to. So if you've filled out your ballot already, you saw 3 names: Joe Biden, Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, I think, and then you saw uncommitted delegates. also as a choice on the ballot. So in order to get allocated any of those 5 delegates in Congressional District 5, the 4 choices on the ballot need to get 15% or higher of the votes in Congressional District 5 in order to be allocated a delegate. So for example, let's say Dean Phillips gets to 14% of the vote, he doesn't get a delegate in Congressional District 5. Let's say Joe Biden gets 90% of the vote, that means nobody else can have 15% because he's got 90%. He would get allocated all 5 delegates. And then when the delegates are being chosen, they have to identify a presidential preference, either one of the 3 names or uncommitted. So if you're running as an uncommitted delegate in Congressional District 5 and no delegates were allocated because uncommitted didn't get to the 15% level, then you have no chance of going to the national convention. So typically, you don't want to apply to run for national delegate until the results of the primary election are known. Because if you're supporting Dean Phillips and he doesn't get any delegates in Congressional District 5, there's really no point in submitting your delegate application because there's no slot for you to fill.
Okay. One
So
other question.
Yeah, go ahead.
They have to be 18 and over, I'm guessing.
I believe they have to be 18 as of the general election.
Okay.
So a 17-year-old can run now, as long as they're going to be 18 by the date of the general election in November. And they're also, a 17-year-old who's going to be 18 by the general election also can register and vote in the presidential primary, even though they're 17 years old now. Our party rules permit that, and the state law permits that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I believe in 2016, one of the 5th congressional district's delegates was one of the youngest, if not the youngest, delegate at the 2016 convention. So we've got a lot of representation historically for our diversity goals. And so it was really cool to have one of the youngest delegates at the national convention in 2016. And then, of course, in 2020, it was a virtual convention. So nobody was in Milwaukee. Any other questions? So if you're interested, if you're not an automatic delegate and you're interested in running, click on the link where delegate training is available. And so the next delegate training, there was one tonight. The next one is Sunday, March 10th, how to run for delegate. And it covers both state convention, national convention, as well as being a voting member of the Electoral College. And then March 14th, March 19th, and March 24th. So 4 opportunities remain to get educated on that process. And so if you're not an automatic delegate to the state convention, or if you are and you want to run for the national convention, I would encourage you to go through the training. Those trainings are all virtual. Any other questions on the delegate selection plan and what we're going to be doing in the 3rd legislative district? Okay, Lou Hill, I'm gonna ask if you're able to see if you've got anything to report to the body as vice chair of our organization. And if you don't have a report, you're also able to say, David, I don't have a report, but thanks.
David, I don't have a report, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lou Hill. Yvette Joseph, as state committee member, we had a meeting that I know you were unable to make due to conflict in January. Might you have a report as a state committee member for the 3rd LD? And if you do, Yvette, you're muted. Okay, we'll pass on Yvette. And
No.
we have, oh, go ahead, Yvette, sorry.
Sorry, I was on the website that for the state party and the delegate selection. So my apologies, but yes, as David had mentioned, I did not make it to the last meeting. I work in the Spelem on 410s, and so I leave like on Sunday night, and I have to report to work by 7 a.m. in the morning on Mondays, and I worked, 410, so I'm there till 5:30, and then I come back on Thursday nights. And so in January, as you knew, during that time, it was there was some snowstorms, and I wasn't worried about getting over the pass with David or um, um, Dr. I don't want to say Benny, but I'm sorry, I'm just
Dr. Dr. Bernie.
Dr.
Yep.
Banks, Bernie Banks, and with our Michaela. And anyway, we I was hopeful that the agenda for the party would end at noon on Sunday, but they chose to meet until probably 3 o'clock. And then, the group would travel back and, drive the 5 to 6 hours from Bellingham to Spokane. And then I would have to drive from there to Nispelum. And I just didn't feel like I could make that drive. And I'm no longer on probation on my job, but it's just we were in the middle of many grant renewals, and so I was not able to make that meeting. So I apologize. It's the first meeting with the state committee that I've missed, and probably, gosh, I would think maybe 6 years. So I was sorry to miss it. And I knew that they were electing the new leadership to the Democratic National Committee, but everybody who was on the slate got reelected. So I don't think there were any drama with respect to the elections. I think they were unopposed. And I knew that the caucus meetings did take place. I checked in with a couple of different individuals. And just so you know, I've been the former platform committee member, the chair for the Spokane County Democrats, and a member of the state platform committee as a co-chair. And then I gave that up to become a co-chair of the Affirmative Action Committee. And so I'm delighted that they're putting more emphasis on meeting the quotas for the Affirmative Action Committee. And I'm hopeful that I will be able to maybe help with that process. I don't know if Diane Perez got reelected or appointed to serve in that position. David, so that's about the one thing I'm not familiar with right now. But meeting the affirmative action goals is something that not all states have been doing. But, I can say very firmly for Washington State that during the last national convention, we met and exceeded all of the goals for Washington State for each of the groups that were represented. The only one where we had a question was with respect to the I think the youth delegation, and we were working to see that a gentleman who's actually a PCO from Pasco was appointed, and that's I think his name is Simon or Sebastian Merkeler. And so anyway, that's something that's really important. And I just kind of wanted to say for the third LD, I think it would be really great if we really focused on getting maybe the young Democrats or the young people, as many of those individuals as possible, serving as delegates to possibly the state convention or to the national convention. And I'd like to I'll try to do what I can to help encourage several to put in for those positions. But myself, having been a national delegate for John Kerry in 2004, and then for Hillary, and not being able to in 2016, and not seeing her elected was really disappointing. But I think this particular go around it's going to be pretty exciting. So I am hopeful, And I do know that we really need to put a lot of emphasis to support Joe Biden. So anyway, that's all I have to report, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. And now I'm going to call to see if we might have reports from Kristen Crowder and Donovan Arnold, who are our third LD representatives to the county party's executive board. And so since you might not have realized you were going to be called on, an acceptable response, of course, is always, I have no report to give. But Kristen, might you have anything to say to the body on what's going on at the county level? And then I'll ask Donovan for his thoughts as well.
Okay, thank you. No, I don't think I have anything to add. So.
Thank you. Donovan, anything?
No, thank you, David. I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just in case you were not looking at any emails from the county party, I'm pleased to report that Nada Spencer, who is one of our own as a PCO in the third, was elected chair of the county party at the special meeting that was held earlier this month. It's now been, what, 10 days? 2 weeks? Something like that?
So, yeah, it has been, tonight it will be 2 weeks.
Congratulations once again, Nada. And
Thank you.
we're proud of you, especially continuing from having Carmela as county chair from the third to Nada being county chair from the third. It's a nice streak to go to have two in a row. And so thanks and congratulations again for your service.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to go to the election of state convention committee members. And so each legislative district has the ability to elect one representative to each of the 3 committees that the state convention has. And it's in the details are in the call to meeting, but I'm gonna go through it just to make sure that everybody has an understanding of the roles and responsibilities of what a committee member does. And all the meetings are going to be virtual this year, this cycle, which I was co-chair of the 2018 Rules Committee, and that was an in-person meeting in Seattle 6 years ago. So I'm quite pleased that they're all virtual. But I want everyone to understand that some of these committees are meeting quite frequently. And so the time commitment for at least one, which is the platform committee, is pretty strong. You're likely to have 3 meetings in the month of March, and then as many as 4 meetings after May 1st, before all virtual, all not short. So just as a heads up, platform as listed in the call and the proposed agenda is the most probably time consuming. It may well be the most rewarding, especially if issues float your boat and drive you. If you are issue focused, then platform is a wonderful committee to be on. The Rules Committee develops proposed rules, which typically don't change too much from one convention to another. So they're probably not going to be hugely different from the 2022 convention, state convention, because that also was a convention where delegation chairs had to be there in person, but nobody else was required to. I think we had 6 or 7 in-person attendees. The rest were participating virtually. The Rules Committee is likely to meet virtually once a month in mid-April, mid-May, and mid-June, just before the convention, which is I think the 3rd weekend in June. And then the Credentials Committee is the committee that has the least time involvement, but it also might be the most routine, because unless there's a challenge to the way a legislative district elected their delegation, the Credentials Committee certifies delegates to the state and national convention, and they also recommend to the convention how delegate challenges should be resolved, either by the Rules Committee. They're also going to be supporting the Affirmative Action Committee in the attainment of goals for each legislative district. and they are likely to meet once before the state convention, probably in June-ish. And so that's the committee that has the least amount of time commitment from a virtual meeting perspective. Does anybody have any questions as to the roles of the three committees, the Credentials Committee, the Rules Committee, or the Platform Committee? Kristen.
I got to be a delegate in 2020, and I remember that they were going over the platform and voting on changes to the platform. Is that something that will happen again?
Yeah,
that's part of the prep. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the platform committee, the reason it's got so many meetings is because it's basically going to have 3 Saturdays in a row in March of intensive review of the 2022 platform. And at the end of those 3 meetings, it will recommend a platform to the delegations from each of the 49 legislative districts. And then the delegations have opportunities to propose amendments to the draft party platform. And there's rules set up by the Rules Committee as to how those proposed changes occur. And then the Platform Committee, after the deadline for submitting proposed changes, the Platform Committee then considers all the proposed changes and begins to fine-tune and potentially amend the platform to the document that will be voted on by the entire convention. And so lots and lots of heavy detail on policy, lots and lots of heavy detail on proposed language, wordsmithing, things like that. So it's great, like I said, it's great for someone who is intensely focused on policy or what policies the Democratic Party should have. And so if that type of work makes you happy, then you're going to want to run for to be the representative from the 3rd for the Platform Committee. If it doesn't make you happy, then you want to stay away from that because we don't want somebody to be miserable. And so just know what you're getting into, what one might be getting into if you desire that you want to run. And so the dates that we had in there were the 3 Saturdays are going to be March 9th, March 16th, and March 23rd. And so if your schedule does not permit you to spend a fair amount of time in a virtual meeting on those days, then it might not be a good fit for candidates who are thinking about it. Any other questions? That's great question, Kristen. None appearing, at least I don't see anybody or hear anybody. Let's open up self-nominations for the Credentials Committee. Does anyone wish to serve potentially on the Credentials Committee? If so, sing out your name.
David, I'll take a stab at doing credentials. I haven't done that.
Okay. Yvette has self-nominated. Or is anybody else interested in running for the Credentials Committee representative? Are there any other nominations for Credentials Committee representative? And thirdly, in our finest party tradition, are there any other nominations? We have to do this 3 times. Apparently that way, if people are sleeping, it gives them the opportunity to wake up and realize that this is the last opportunity to run for the Credentials Committee position. None appearing. Nominations are closed, and we have 1 candidate for the Credentials Committee, which is Yvette Joseph. The chair will entertain a motion to elect Yvette by acclamation.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, everyone.
And all those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Yvette, congratulations. You've been elected as the 3rd LD representative to the Credentials Committee.
Thank you. I will be good.
The Rules Committee. As noted, the Rules Committee develops and proposes rules and agenda for the convention. It's likely to meet virtually once a month in mid-April, mid-May, and mid-June. I heartily recommend the Rules Committee. I was co-chair of the 2018 one. And if you love rules and process and setting of agendas, you might want to think about running to be our representative to the Rules Committee. Would anyone like to self-nominate themselves for the Rules Committee?
David, how
Bill-
much does this?
Bill Foreman,
Sorry.
Bill, I got your name. Rick,
Yep.
did you have a comment?
Well, I was just wondering how much time does this consume?
My guess, it's three meetings, or it's projected to be three meetings. Mid-April, mid-May, mid-June, likely to be on a Saturday, is what I've been told to expect. And my guess, I know when we had the 2018 one, which obviously was 6 years ago, so that might not be a good proxy, but I think that meeting took about 6 hours as an in-person meeting.
Thank you.
Yep. Did you want to potentially put your name in for that position, Rick, or you just had questions about it?
I just had questions. I don't really think I can commit to much because of what I said at the beginning of this meeting.
Okay. Are there any other nominations other than Bill Foreman for Rules Committee? Any other nominations for the Rules Committee? And finally, any other nominations for the Rules Committee? None appearing. Nominations are closed, and I will entertain a motion to elect Bill Foreman by acclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
All right.
All opposed say no. Any abstentions? Congratulations, Bill. You've been elected representative to the Rules Committee.
Thank you.
And then lastly, the most time-intensive Platform Committee. Knowing that there's likely to be meetings on March 9th, March 16th, and March 23rd, those are Saturdays, and then follow-up meetings, perhaps as many as 4 of them after May 1st. Is there any interest in anyone self-nominating to be our representative to the Platform Committee?
oops.
I guess I undersold that one, huh?
Um, David, if I could say something about this, just for anyone that might have an interest, it's a fun committee to be a part of, because you meet a lot of the other platform committee members from across the state. And you know, one thing I find about our state committee meetings is we don't get a lot of chance to talk with each other about the issues. And this is the time where you really get to dig into the issues of concern to you. If, say, you're into education, or you you're concerned about what's going on in the Middle East, or with you know, immigration or abortion, or any of those sort of hot button issues, women's rights and voting, or murdered and missing Indigenous people. You know, there's just a lot of opportunity to talk about the issues. And you know, it's just something I think is just a great committee to be a part of. And there's some people who've been doing this for years. And I met the gentleman who was probably in his 80s, who had been a platform committee member every 4 years. And he was from, I want to say Benton County. But anyway, it's just kind of an exciting group, just to meet people who are concerned about the community. So I just encourage any of you that want to partner up and meet some other folks, and maybe you have an interest in being more involved in the state party, but this is really where you can get into the meat of it. And I liked it. I just, I've been trying to serve in different roles every 4 years or so, and so this is one I won't be able to serve on, but I'd encourage any of you to consider it. Kristen, I think I remember that you were very interested in stuff like this.
I know. I remember from the previous one that I was at that the platform was fantastic. Like it was super detailed and they lined out everything and they stated it as simply and clearly as they could. And I was really impressed with it. And I just don't think I'm going to be free that many long days. But, so.
Any self-nominations for platform? Second time, any self-nominations for platform? Any self-nominations for platform? Nominations are closed, and we will not elect a member of the platform committee, which I understand given the time commitments or in order to be able to do a good job.
I'm going to nominate Mark Carlos.
Well, I think Mark's time commitments, based on his job with Betsy as the council president, I think we would be terrible to impose platform on Mark. Okay. But I agree he would be passionate. He would be passionate about the issues. Okay, I'll mark down that we're going to pass on submitting someone for the platform committee. So thank you for everyone who has stepped up to take on a state convention committee role. I found it very rewarding when I was involved, and I know that many of us have done this in the past. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to move to good of the order and ask Nada, Precinct Committee Officer of Precinct 3240 and County Party Chair, to make a little pitch for the Foley Dinner.
Yes, the Tom Foley Dinner is coming March 16th. And so it's going to be really exciting. We have the DNC Vice Chair, Ken Martin. We have April Sin, she's the president of the Washington Labor Association. We have Shasti Conrad, the chair of the Washington State Democrats, coming all the way over here. And we have Senator Maria Cantwell coming to talk. It's going to be a really exciting time. Tickets are on sale right now. I do have to say our county website is a little atrocious at this moment. It is being rebuilt, and so please forgive the look of that, but that is a way to get to the ticket page. It's going to be an amazing time to just celebrate the things that Democrats have gotten done, all the work that we do, and the amazing message that we have, and the message of hope and change and betterment for all people in this country. So let's just go celebrate who we are and get energized for all this work this year.
Thank you so much, Nada. Does anybody else have good of the order that they'd like to bring to the attention of the body?
I actually have a question about special projects. What's an example of a special project on what, that's part of the volunteer list of items you can volunteer for?
Currently, a special project, a good example is right now we are getting a team together to rewrite the PCO handbook so that it's more update date and actually has the resources that they would need and be more useful. So those are special projects that we are working on in the office. Another special project right now is working to try and help reach the affirmative action goals for the LDs. And so we have a multitude of skills that we can use at the county party. If you have time, energy, and passion, or just one of those, we can use that. So any kind of help or specialized skill. Right now, a lot of it is depending on writing. Those of us in leadership, that's not our strong suit. You've probably seen some of my emails. I have typos. I'm an atrocious speller. So things like that are really helpful as we're building processes.
Please don't be
Thank you,
too
Dana.
hard on yourself. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And actually, I really enjoy proofreading. So if you want to just toss anything my way, and I will run through and, fix it up for you a little.
No, that would be awesome.
So yeah, just send anything, preferably to my regular personal email.
Yes.
And I will catch that and, proofread it up for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other good of the order? Carmela, do you want to take yourself off mute and just spend maybe a minute or two talking about big picture, what it's like running for Congress and what things are going on in your campaign life?
I would be happy to do that. Thank you. I'll even take if this doesn't destroy the audio, I'll also put the video on, but I can't guarantee you that. Thank you for the opportunity. It is a new experience to be a candidate. I have to think back with watching other candidates go through, what you go through being a candidate. And I thought, well, they just need to develop a thicker skin because I've been in unfriendly countries and represented the United States, and criticism happens, but it's a different thing to be representing an entity apart from yourself. And as the campaign, you are, as the candidate in a campaign, you're sort of it. So apologies to any candidates in the past if I was not sufficiently sympathetic to the pain that you were going through. But I think, sort of zooming out from that, the fact that we have an open seat now creates a once in a generation opportunity for Democrats in Eastern Washington to get candidates out there and make the change. If anybody's, it's hard to keep track of all the Republicans dropping into the field. Last I looked, there were 6 Republicans who had filed with the FEC. There was one additional Republican who had announced but not yet filed with the FEC, and 2 other Republicans who say that their friends, people are pushing them to run for office, and they're considering what to do. Those last 2 are Nadine Woodward and Ozzie Knezovich. So it is a great big field out there. There's been more interest in the campaigns of the 3 Democrats since this has happened, but I have to admit there's a little disappointment that although the Spokesman Review published about a 10-column-inch story about Michael Baumgartner entering into the race, they've never done a interview with any of the 3 Democratic candidates, and hopefully that will be coming soon.
How about the inlander? Get out there with the inlander.
Yeah, the Inlander hasn't published. They did a little bit more about the field, but they haven't done anything. They haven't done any specific candidate lengthy articles on any of the candidates. I will note that when I was chair of the Democrats, that sometimes people would say would criticize me because almost nothing. Their articles with quotes from me as the chair would have very little. There'd be just one pithy remark or 2, and that would be it, and very little about the stakes of the race or the policies in play. And people would approach me afterwards and say, oh, you should have made this point, or you should have made that point. You shouldn't have let them get away with horse race reporting. It should have been about policies. I can tell you, I'm sure Nada will have this same experience. We talk about policies and we talk about what we think the stakes are rather than the which horse is ahead, which horse is behind. Emery Dinman spent a lot of time pushing me to talk about which Republicans I thought might enter the race. If they entered the race, who would have the best shot at it? And I refused to engage in that sort of speculation and did what I could to return to the policies. Because I think, as Nada said, this is going to be a really big year for Democrats. And if you are not already signed up for Simon Rosenberg's Substack, which is called Hopium, I encourage you to find it and sign up for it, because that gives you some database reasons to be proud of what our party is doing and why it is that we really are the party of 2024. So, David, thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Carmela.
Is PBS going to be doing a preview session with any of you folks?
I am not sure about that, Rick. That's a good question. I'm going to be up at KPBS either this Friday or next Friday for a practice run of the Civics Bowl in my role as a League of Women Voter member of the League of Women Voters Civic Education group. I was one of the question writers for Civics Bowl. I will ask Gary Stokes if we'll have an opportunity to do that. I would imagine. Sorry, I would imagine.
Go ahead.
I would imagine that there will be more opportunities for multi-candidate fora because there is no incumbent and pretty much everybody is going to want to get their ideas out and their name out and give voters a chance to make an informed choice. And if I assume everybody here knows that the Magnuson Club will be hosting the 3 Democratic candidates on Tuesday, March 5th. The Eastern Washington University Democrats will be hosting a forum for the 3 Democratic candidates on Friday, March 22nd, midday.
Typically, KSPS doesn't do their candidate forums until after the primary. And they might change it up this time, but historically, they haven't done anything until after the primary. And they have typically done their own debate, but it follows a sort of similar forum to what they do at Rotary or to League of Women Voters with the final candidates with a fairly select group of questions. So, Rick, if you are interested in that being on KSPS as a current thing, you should outreach to Gary Stokes and send him an email that says, as a member and listener of KSPS, I'm very curious if you will be having more in-depth coverage of the candidates in the primary, right?
Consider it done.
Thank you.
Yep. Carmela.
I just would point out, I agree, Karen, typically there would not be anything prior to the primaries, but as the Inlander pointed out last week, we've only had, 5 congressional district representatives in 85 years or 86 years. So it is unusual to have an open seat in this district. The last open seat we had was when CMR first ran in 2004. Was 10 years prior to that George Nethercutt ran against Tom Foley, and Tom Foley had a 30-year run. So
right.
Incumbents maybe aren't so interested in going on stage and offering their visibility, their prestige to other candidates, but everybody in the race this year has a need to get their name and face out. So hopefully that'll make it some pre-primary high visibility fora possible.
Thank you, Carmela. Nada.
Sorry, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I did want to bring up that forum on March 22nd. The Eastern Washington Dems College Group is the one putting that on. And that is a group that is started by Stephen McCrae just last year. He's already got, I think, 32 members a couple of months ago. So I have no idea how many it is now, but is ran by college students. And they are doing all the work. This is all of their first time doing this. So anything that we can do to support them would be a really good thing that, and a way to get younger people into the party, and see that they have value too.
Thank you, Nita.
Mhm.
Any other items for good of the order? None appearing. I will leave you with March 12th. Get your presidential preference primary ballot in. That is one way that our database for the Democratic Party gets replenished every 4 years with people who vote as with the affiliation of Democrat in the presidential primary. It's a huge data point. So it's really great. It'll be really great because people who vote in the presidential primary will likely vote in the August primary, and they will likely vote in the November general election. So all hands on deck on getting folks, your friends, your like-minded neighbors, family to vote by March 12th. And with that, I will ask for a motion for us to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Kristen. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Congratulations to Yvette and Bill for serving on behalf of the 3rd LD with the state convention committees. And we will have an executive committee meeting for the 3rd LD and come up with some recommendations for that $2,000 and get our next meeting on the agenda for likely in the month of May. Thank you so much for spending some of your evening with us, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the couple of weeks, the remaining before the ballots close for the presidential primary. Thank you so much. Bye.